Have you ever stared at your phone and seen a message from someone you actually like? It's a completely normal question. A simple, "How are you?" But suddenly your chest tightens. An invisible weight presses on your heart. You feel no anger, no hatred. You only feel a paralyzing emptiness. You look at the glowing screen, but your fingers don't move. Why does a simple answer become an insurmountable wall? Why do we feel guilty for loving silence more than connection? Imagine Anne. She's just like you. She sits in the dark, the screen's light reflecting in her empty eyes. She's not rude. She's not arrogant. She's burned out on the inside. Today, we're not talking about ignorance. We're talking about psychological disappearance. We're deciphering the moment your soul pulls the plug to save the system from total collapse. Welcome to a journey into the deepest depths of your nervous system. We tend to harshly condemn this behavior. Society has a name for it. They call it ghosting. They label it as cowardice, a sign of immaturity, or even emotional cruelty. But when we pull back the curtain of morality, a completely different truth reveals itself. In psychology, we're not talking about ignorance, but a massive overload of internal resources. Social psychologist Eli Finkel has studied the burden of our modern world. He describes the phenomenon of hyperconnectivity. Let's think about it for a moment. Our brain is a relic from the Stone Age. It's programmed to cultivate deep bonds with a handful of people. Today, however, the digital world demands a permanent social presence from us. The concept of social overextension shows us that our nervous system simply wasn't built to process the expectations, moods, and messages of hundreds of people simultaneously. Every unanswered message on Anne's display is like an open tab on a computer that's already overheating. So when Anne disappears, when she puts her phone away and buries herself under her blanket, it's not a decision against friendship. It's a biological emergency brake. It's her organism's desperate attempt to prevent a total system crash. Her disappearance isn't a moral failure. It's a survival instinct. Let's look at Anne's life more closely. Her disappearance doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process, a deep fall into a spiral we call the cycle of guilt. Every day, Anne doesn't answer her friend's message. The hurdle gets higher. A minute turns into an hour into a week. A merciless court begins in her mind. She imagines how disappointed others are. She feels the imaginary condemnation. This pain is so great that fleeing into total silence seems the only way to escape the shame. It's paradoxical. To stop feeling guilty, she cuts off the connection entirely. But the silence isn't just digital. In her office, Anne sits physically at her desk. She nods, she smiles politely, she functions. But internally, she's long since drawn the curtains. This is emotional withdrawal. She's like a ghost in her own life. She builds a glass wall to protect herself from further expectations. Anyone who looks at her sees only the facade. No one suspects that behind it, a person is gasping for air. Why does Anne have no strength left? Because she suffers from the empty vessel syndrome. For years, she was the silent hero, the one who always listened, who soaked up others' problems like a sponge. She gave away all her energy until only dry dust remained at the bottom of her heart. You can't give light when your own fire has gone out, and here lies the most tragic secret of all. Anne doesn't disappear because she doesn't love people. She disappears because she loves them too much. In her world, love means being perfect. She's terribly afraid that her loved ones might see the cracks in her soul. She believes she's only valuable if she's strong. So she retreats into the darkness to save the image of the perfect Anne in others' minds. She hides her broken pieces so no one gets cut by them. But why does Anne's body react so extremely? Why does a message feel like an attack? The answer lies deep in her nervous system. Stephen Porges explains this with the polyvagal theory. He describes a state we call shutdown. Normally, our nervous system helps us connect with others. But when social pressure and expectations become too great, Anne's brain switches to humanity's oldest survival mode, freezing. It's a biological playing dead reflex. Her body believes it's in mortal danger. To conserve energy and avoid further pain, the system cuts off connection to the outside world. It's like a circuit breaker tripping because the electrical voltage is too high. At the same time, Anne's RAS, the reticular activating system, is at work. This filter in the brainstem is actually there to separate important from unimportant information. But in Anne, this filter is clogged. Due to the constant flood of information and social signals, the RAS switches to emergency mode. It completely blocks out social interactions so the brain can focus on mere survival. In this moment, a WhatsApp message isn't a sign of love for her brain. It's simply white noise that needs to be filtered out. However, this biological protective wall has a foundation built in Anne's childhood. Psychologist John Bowlby spoke of attachment theory. Anne grew up as the ignored child. She learned early on that her needs didn't interest anyone, so she developed an avoidant attachment. Her extreme independence today isn't a sign of strength, but a perfected survival strategy. She learned, if I don't need anyone, no one can leave me. If I disappear before things get complicated, I remain in control of my own pain. Her silence is the protective armor of a child who had to learn far too early to be self-sufficient. But we have to be honest. As much as silence is a saving shore for Anne, it's an open sea full of uncertainty for the people on the other end. In psychology, we call this ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss. It's one of the cruelest forms of emotional pain. When a loved one disappears without a word, the wound remains open. There's no goodbye. No explanation, no closure. Those left behind are stuck in a labyrinth of self-doubt. They ask themselves, what did I do wrong? Am I not worth answering? Your healing shouldn't become the cause of someone else's trauma. We need to learn to distinguish between two types of silence. There's silence to recharge your own battery in a protected space. That's healthy and necessary. And there's silence to avoid uncomfortable conversations or your own responsibility. That's an escape, and needs to understand that self-care isn't a free pass for emotional recklessness. A single sentence, a tiny message saying you need some time for yourself, can make the difference between a necessary break and a ruined relationship. True strength means not just protecting yourself, but also having the courage to send a quick signal from the darkness. Ultimately, we need to understand that we aren't machines that function forever. We are organic beings. A human is like a state-of-the-art smartphone. When the battery drops to 0%, it shuts down by itself. Not because it's broken or wants to abandon you. It powers down to protect its valuable data and delicate internal circuits from total destruction. Your silence is this protection mode. It's your system's attempt to preserve the core of your being. But the true art of life is not to wait until a total blackout. We need to learn to read the warning signs before the lights go out. Proactive recharging means taking space for silence before pain forces us to. Let's look at Anne one last time. She's still sitting in front of her phone. But her gaze has changed. Fear has given way to deep acceptance. She now knows she doesn't have to be perfect to be loved. With trembling fingers, she types a single, short message. I need some time alone right now to get back to myself. I'll get back to you soon. It's just one sentence, a tiny signal from her retreat. But in that moment, the wall of shame crumbles. The uncertainty on the other end of the line dissolves, and has not only saved her energy, but also the bridge to the people she loves. She has learned that a break isn't an end, but a deep breath before the next chapter. If you recognized yourself in Anne's story today, if you too sometimes feel the need to just disappear, then know this: you are not alone here. Write the word healing in the comments. It's a small sign for yourself that you are ready to set your boundaries without guilt. If you want to delve deeper into this work, I invite you to become part of our exclusive community. There, we share practical exercises for what I call safe disengagement. Learn how to take the space you need without burning bridges with the people who matter to you. In our next video, we'll go one step further back to the roots. We'll examine the psychology of the ignored child and how growing up in the shadows shapes our current fear of closeness and attachment. I'm your companion on the path to a new understanding of yourself. Subscribe to Psychology Shorts so you don't miss a step on this journey. Take care. We'll see you in the next chapter.